Hello, welcome to Mentoring with the Masters. In this segment, you're going to be hearing from Mayanne Downs, past president of the Florida Bar. She will be speaking to you about initial interviews and selection of your clients. I hope you enjoy.
My name is Mayanne Downs. I'm an attorney at GrayRobinson. I'm also city attorney for the city of Orlando. And I am here to talk to you about initial interviews with clients and some potential difficulties you should be on the lookout for. First of all, I was fortunate enough in law school to have the benefit of some psychological training, because we actually were one of the few law schools at the University of Florida in the 80s that had a staff psychologist. And one of the things I learned from her is the value of validating and affirming people when they give you information, particularly at a difficult time in their lives. And some of you may have had that, learned about that concept in connection with personal relationships. And so one of the things I always try to do when people come in to meet with me, because I'm a litigator, or in my municipal context, I'm dealing with other problems, and people rarely, if ever, come to see a lawyer to tell them a happy tale. Sometimes they do, certainly in other areas of law, but in litigation, someone is coming to tell you about a difficulty, and that difficulty, even if the client is a large institution, the difficulty always is fraught with some level of emotion and some discomfort, disappointment, sadness, sometimes tragedy that leads people to come and see you. So I've always believed that the first thing you have to do when a client is telling you a difficult story is try to make sure they understand that you get that it's hard, that you understand how they feel, you're getting the facts, and you're understanding what brings them there. There's a really simple tool to do this, and it's called active listening. And if you don't know about it, I would invite you to read more about it. But active listening just means repeating back to the person to whom you're listening in very short, simple ways that let them know that you're paying attention, that you get it, you understand why they're there. I have found in my practice that very few lawyers engage in this process, this little tiny thing that you can do. And I have found that through the years, clients often affirmatively say to me that they feel like I understand them in a way that other lawyers they talk to didn't. And I'm not sure if that's really true, but I think that in fact I understand them more. But I think the fact that I say, I understand, I get why you're here, that must be difficult, I can imagine how hard this is, the fact that I say those things makes them feel comfortable. So that would be my first tip. It's not terribly legal in nature, but I think it's important. The second is, and I know and understand this, and I try to keep it forefront in my mind because I was a client before I was a lawyer. I was a defendant in a lawsuit before I was a lawyer prosecuting or defending one. And that is, apart from active listening and affirming, to really understand how very difficult and complex, even for sophisticated clients, the process of resolving a dispute through the litigation process really is. This is a game you have to remember that even sophisticated clients are forced to play on a field they did not choose, by rules they don't understand, and indirectly through a champion they must choose to fight a battle for them. So for those of us who are high achieving and maybe somewhat controlling in our lives, you might get a sense of how uncomfortable a process litigation really is. And to the extent that you can keep that in the forefront of your mind, I think you'll do well. The third tip, if you will, that I have is that please train yourself to speak in English and to write in English. It is disconcerting and in some circumstances affirmatively offensive to use legal jargon, to use Latin, to use terms that lawyers are familiar with but your clients are not. And I think sometimes lawyers without thinking about it enhance their own self-image by bandying about terms they have a familiarity with, but it's to the detriment of your client, and nobody should do it. I think it's a lazy way to talk and communicate, and I think if you remove it from your language with your clients in an initial interview and thereafter, you would serve your interests and your client interests well. let me turn to difficulties and tips and clues that the engagement you're considering is one that you might need to have a certain level of skepticism about. One is, of course, request for guaranteed outcomes. Another is a request to give with precision how much a lawsuit will cost. That's like asking a fighter to predict how many punches he's going to throw. Well, he doesn't know, and he doesn't know how many he's going to connect with because it's going to depend on what his adversary and his opponent does. So if a client wants that kind of information, first of all, they may not understand the process. But second of all, they may be looking to hook you into a circumstance in which you'll feel compelled to do things you might not otherwise do, or you might have a discomfort in the engagement because looking back, you tended to give an assurance to a client that probably wasn't warranted on the front end of the engagement.